Hello everyone, Dan Hook here, and yes, it's been a while since my last video. I've had a few issues that I've had to work out, which are all resolved now, and yes, it's probably been like 9 months or 11 months since my last video, so far too long. Sorry about the light. I use sunlight, and I'm afraid that just happens to be where the sun is right at the very moment, so one side of me is quite harsh and the other side is, well, in the dark. But yes, the main topic for this video is having multiple characters within the same book. How do you differentiate between them? How can you help the audience know who they're reading? And basically just my view on it. I've got like 3 things that I think about, but not necessarily use all the time. And before I start that, yeah, with my chapters, I actually label them with the character name, so you know who you're reading. Where some people who write their books, obviously they use a title instead of the actual character they're reading, or they can switch between characters in the same chapter. So it helps to have certain characters either use repetition with certain words, have a certain dialect, be in a certain location, or behave a certain way, which I'll be discussing now. So, strong character traits. So for me in my book, I've got Shelby, Luther, and Zara. Shelby's a bit of a family man who cares for his kids and always puts himself second to his kids. Zara has kind of had a bit of a sheltered life, is curious to see the outside world. She isn't stupid, but she's kind of naive to what some people get up to. And then we have Luther, who is quick-tempered because of some personal issues that he needs to sort out. But he cares a lot about how people view him, so he's always careful in that respect. And with each of these traits, it means that they behave a certain way within their chapter, and hopefully these behaviours are distinct enough for someone to be able to recognise who they're reading without having their name in it, even though, you know, it usually is. And to have good traits like that, that's just to do with character foundations, and when you're developing a character, you give them a decent background, or as, Westworld. As Westworld says, cornerstones. Every person has to have a good cornerstone. I mean, they say it's sad, but, you know, as long as you've got a good, solid foundation to build off of for your character, good background, good history, or bad history, you know, good or bad. Good in the respects it's well written. That will affect the behaviour, and then that will affect how the story pushes forward. So it's kind of a vague-ish, is that a vague point? I guess that's more like a general, like, overall, just, if you have solid characters, then you should have chapters that are distinct enough from each other from the get-go. In combination with that is I tend to find location. Now, it's not always possible to have all of your characters in different locations. Obviously, if they're in the same place, then they're in the same place, but the only way you get around that, if you wanted to try and make it obvious to who you're reading, is to have obviously 3 different, or 4, or however many you have, different perspectives of the same place. So obviously, if you had a rich person in a rundown hotel, they're going to think it's pretty scabby. If you have a homeless or poor person in a rundown hotel, they're going to think it's great, they're going to love it. So that was just a random weird example I just made up, but you know, it's different perspectives. If, however, you can have them in different locations, which is what I've done, at least to start with, I feel like when you start reading it and all of my characters are in different locations, you can kind of etch into the reader's mind like who is who and where they've started, and then proceed to sort of move the story along and move them around. Obviously that's not possible for some people. So for me, Luther, he starts in a city, he's got some finer things, he's got a nice room, whereas someone like Shelby starts at home, on the coast, it's pretty remote, he cares for himself and his family, and then you've got Zara, who is somewhere else. So by having that contrast between these settings and locations, you know, it helps to sort of figure out who you're reading or what the person might be about. In particular, the first chapter for Luther is quite the stark contrast between the other 2 characters, and hopefully it has a bit of an impact in like showing where he is. Which, yes, I forgot to mention, I don't know if I mentioned it or not now. Yeah, my book's like post-apocalyptic, sci-fi, speculative fiction, need to work on all that. But yeah, so that kind of vibe. And obviously thirdly, is dialect. So having your characters talk a certain way. Now, I don't like strong dialects because the way I write them, I kind of like chop up the words and like you have like bits missing here and there, and I don't want to make it a chore when readers work their way through certain characters. So I kind of left it as more of like the side characters who have thicker and stronger accents and more tics. So tics like repetitive words that people say. I've got some tics I think for the main characters, but they're a bit more subtle because I feel like having too strong, although it's good for recognising characters, I feel like the way I write you know, it might not be the way that you write. The way I write, it just kind of gets in the way of storytelling, which I didn't want. You know, I want my book to be easy and accessible for readers, and I don't want to like hinder any flow of it. Also with dialect, obviously, you know, depending on where the character's from, they have a certain vocabulary and certain knowledge of things and words and what they know. So there's a bit of that going on in mine, but yeah, so I'm hoping everything else sort of pushes that. I do label my chapters for each character, but there are those who don't, so obviously you want to sort of make sure your writing between characters is as distinct as possible. Not that you're going to get confused, because you don't want it to be confusing, really. I mean, you know, as I've said, you know, I'm just a personal fan of just labelling the chapters with their names because, I don't know, really, it just makes it a bit easier. Am I lazy? Is that lazy? No, it's not lazy, it's completely fine. Completely fine. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hopefully it's of some use. It's basically just what I've done and am doing with the whole thing. So what we got? We got dialect, location, and a good solid foundation to sort of dictate their actions, and hopefully you've made it so each character is different enough from the other. But yeah, hopefully it won't be too long before I get another video out, and yeah, thank you for watching.